he talks about various political systems, but like any of them, besides democracy is the least bad. But he poses the same dilemma. He's, of course, talking about Athens, not a big country, but and also there's only free men, no women, no slaves. But he says, well, the same argument. He says, if you have democracy, the majority of the poor will use their voting rights to take away the property of the rich. Now, it's interesting that Madison and Aristotle posed the same problem, but they picked opposite answers. For Madison, the solution was to reduce democracy. For Aristotle, it was to reduce inequality. So he proposes what we would call welfare state measures, common meals, redistribution, and so on. If you move towards relative equality, then the dilemma will decline or disappear. But our systems are based on the opposite. They have to reduce democracy so that the majority of the poor don't exercise their voting rights. And there are various devices to achieve this, depending on the society. Well, these are deeply rooted in our society now, and its institutions and so on. And it takes a lot of work, even just educational work, to overcome it. So I don't know if it's true here, but in the United States, there are major efforts. Actually, go back to the 19th century, when people were driven to the factories, the textile factories in eastern New England and so on, mid-19th century. But this is like Irish artisans in Boston, or what were called factory girls, young women from the farm. They had a very lively press, labor press, the freest press in history probably, which they ran and wrote and so on. And one of the things that they most bitterly denounced was what they called the new spirit of the age, gain wealth, forgetting all but self. Okay, sound familiar? Almost 200 years have passed while there are efforts to drive the new spirit of the age into people's heads. It's so inhuman and intolerable that people just don't accept it unless it's driven into their heads. That's a large part of what the educational system is. And by now, go to the United States, the extreme form that this takes is what's called libertarian, amazingly. The libertarian doctrines are gain wealth, forgetting all but self. Okay? The leading figures are people like Ayn Rand, who's total pathological, But that's what people are taught to think. Forget everything else, just gain wealth. And it has effects over time. You can see it with upwardly mobile young people who figure that's the way we go to devote our lives. Okay, it's taken almost 200 years, but it's had some effect. It can be reversed.
So we have talked